The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor. $300 a glass. I did not flinch. Did you hear me, mother? My son Michael stood 6 feet away. His wife Sarah clawed his arm like she was holding back a dog. Your money cannot buy our love. 23 guests stared at the carpet, at the broken glass, at anything except me. That I picked up my Hermes purse from the sideboard. His father bought it in Paris in 1989. 4,000 francs. Back then, that was everything. Enjoy the party, I said. The caviar is from Beluga. The roast in the kitchen cost more than your first car. Michael flinched. His first car, a 2002 Honda Civic, had been my gift. He was 16. New license. He cried when he saw it. Now he looked at me like I was poison. I walked toward the door. My heels clicked against the hardwood. Steady. Measure. Where are you going? Sarah's voice. Thin. Reedy. I never liked her. Home. It's New Year's Eve. I have scotch and a fire and zero desire to spend another minute with people who confuse financial help with emotional abuse. The room gasped. I opened the front door. Minnesota in December. Snow fell in fat white flakes. My BMW sat in the driveway, already dusted with powder. Mother. Michael's voice behind me. Softer. Almost pleading. You cannot just leave. I turned back. Once. Just enough to catch his eyes. Watch me. I got in the car. I did not look back. I pulled out of the driveway, past the house where I raised him, past the oak tree where he had his first kiss, past the street where he learned to ride a bike. Every corner of this neighborhood held a memory. Every memory had my money attached to it. Therapy, private school, college tuition, down payment on his first house, the business loan when his startup nearly failed. I paid for all of it. I never asked for gratitude. I asked for respect. Tonight, in front of everyone, he told me exactly what he thought of that. I drove through the snow. Empty roads. Everyone inside, celebrating. Families gathered around televisions, waiting for the ball to drop. Champagne flutes clinking. Laughter. I had no one. 47 minutes. My house sat on 10 acres of land. Pine trees. Silence. Too big for one person. I bought it after my husband died. Thought I would fill it with grandchildren. Instead, I filled it with art and books and the kind of silence that eats you alive. I poured myself a glass of scotch. Laphroaig. Single malt. Tastes like smoke and regret. I sat in my favorite chair by the fireplace. Watched the logs burn. The house was cold. Not because the heat was off. Because I was alone. My phone buzzed. Margaret. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. And again. I turned it face down. The clock on the mantel read 11:15 p.m. I thought about Michael. The way his voice cracked when he screamed. The word love and what it meant to people who never went hungry. I grew up in a house with no heat. My father worked 2 jobs. Sometimes 3. My mother sewed our clothes from old curtains. I started working when I was 14, cleaning houses for rich women who looked at me like furniture. I promised myself I would never be poor again. I kept that promise. Built a company from nothing. Worked 18-hour days for 20 years. Sold it for more money than most people see in a lifetime. Invested wisely. Never took a vacation. Never stopped. And now my son stood in my sister's living room and told me my money could not buy his love. He was right, but he was wrong about what that meant. The clock ticked. 11:30. 11:45. I finished my scotch. Poured another. At 11:55, I heard a sound. A siren. Distant. Getting closer. I walked to the window. Snow falling harder now. Flashing lights at the bottom of my driveway. Red and blue. Emergency. I opened the front door. The cold hit me again. This time it stayed. A police car. An ambulance. Behind them, a fire truck. My son Michael was running up the driveway. Not walking. Running. His feet slipped in the snow. He fell once. Twice. Got up each time. His face streaked with something that could have been tears or sweat or both. Mother. His voice was raw. Hoarse. Mother. I stepped onto the porch. Wrapped my arms around myself. Watched him come to. He reached the bottom of the steps and stopped. Shaking. Not from the cold, the house, he gasped. The old house. It's on fire. I stared at him. Which old house? He looked at me like I had asked the stupidest question in the world. The house on Elm Street. Grandpa's house. The one you never let me go inside. I felt something crack inside my chest. Something I buried a long time ago. I thought you sold it, he said. I thought you got rid of everything. I shook my head. I could never sell that house. Then why? Because it's not mine to sell. It never was. The sirens grew louder. Snow kept falling. Michael looked at me, and for the first time in years, I saw the little boy I used to hold in my arms. The one who believed I could fix anything. The one who was about to learn the truth. Get in the car, I said. Mother, now. I did not wait. I was already walking toward my BMW, already pulling my keys from my coat pocket. My hands were steady. My voice was steady. Everything inside me was not. We drove through the snow. Michael in the passenger seat, gripping the door handle like he was bracing for impact. He kept looking at me, opening his mouth, closing it again. Say it. I said, say what? Whatever you want to say. The clock is about to strike midnight. You screamed at me in front of everyone. Now you're sitting in my car, asking me for help. There's something you need to get off your chest. He was quiet for a long moment. Snow blurred past the windshield like static. I didn't mean it, he said finally. What I said about your money. I looked at him. You meant every word. Maybe I did, he whispered. But I still need you. That's what I hate most. That I need you. I did not respond, but we drove in silence. The fire lit up the sky before we reached the street. Orange and red and terrible. I could see the glow from half a mile away. The old house sat at the end of a dead-end road. My father built it with his own hands. My mother died in the bedroom upstairs. I had not stepped foot inside in 20 years, but I kept it. Every month I paid the taxes. Every year I hired someone to mow the lawn. I told myself it was a memorial. I told myself I would deal with it someday. I never dealt with it, and now the roof was collapsing. Firefighters rushed past us. Hoses sprayed water that turned to steam before it hit the flames. Heat hit my face through the car window. Michael got out. I followed. The old oak tree in the front yard was still there. The porch swing I used to play on. The broken step my father always said he would fix. This house, Michael said, staring at the flames. What's in it? I took a deep breath. Smoke filled my lungs. I coughed. Everything, I said. Everything you never told me. Everything I was too angry to ask. And I told him, the deed to this house is a forgery, I said. The judge who ruled against your grandfather was bribed. There's a metal box under the floorboards in your grandmother's bedroom. Inside, photographs, letters, witness statements. Everything we need to prove this house belongs to us. Michael stared at me. His mouth hung open. 20 years. 20 years you've owned this house. And you never looked. Your grandfather told me to keep it buried. He said some secrets are meant to stay hidden. The moment you dig them up, they change everything. They're changing now, Michael said. They're burning. I looked at the fire. The flames had reached the second floor. I watched the master bedroom window shatter. Glass sprayed everywhere. Why didn't you do something? His voice was rising. Why didn't you go to the police, a lawyer, anyone? Because I had a family to protect. Your father. You. Do you know what it would have cost me to fight this years? Decades. All the money I made would have been eaten by legal fees. All the time I had would have been spent in courtrooms instead of with you. I chose you. I chose your father. I chose a clean life over a righteous one. Michael was crying now. Tears froze on his cheeks. And now it's burning, he whispered. Everything you kept hidden. Everything Grandpa left you. All turning to ash. A firefighter ran toward us. Young. Early 20s. Helmet covered in soot. Ma'am. Sir. You need to back up. The roof is about to collapse. Michael grabbed my hand, pulled me away from the house. We stumbled through the snow. My heels sank into the powder. I felt like I was walking through quicksand. We stopped at the oak tree. The one Michael played under as a boy. The one I planted with my father before he died. The fire roared. And then, through all that noise, I heard a cry, not from the fire. Not from the firefighters. From Michael. He was looking at something near the tree. At his feet. A piece of metal. Blackened by smoke, but still recognizable. A small metal box. Size of a shoe. It must have fallen from the second-story window. Half buried in the snow. Michael bent down. Picked it up. Still warm. Wisps of steam rising. There's something inside, he said. Michael, don't. Too late. He opened it. Inside. Thick paper. Legal documents yellowed with age. A photograph of a man in a uniform. My father. Young. Strong. Eyes that held a fire I only glimpsed in memory. Beneath the photograph, a letter, my father's handwriting, *. If you are reading this, my daughter, then I am proud of you. You have survived. You have thrived. And now you have found the one thing I could never give you in life. The truth. *. The deed to the house is a forgery. The judge's signature was a bribe. But I have evidence. I have named the men who did this to us. Use it. Or don't. The choice is yours. *. But know this, my child. The thing that makes a house a home is not the paper that says it's yours. It's the love you put inside the walls. *. I loved you. I love you still. That is the only inheritance that matters. *. Michael looked up. His face unreadable. Mom, he said. What do we do? I looked at the burning house. At the secret that controlled me for 20 years. At the son who had screamed at me hours ago. I smiled. We do nothing. Nothing. We let it burn. We let the past become ash. And tomorrow we start again. Michael stared at me. For the first time that night he smiled too. Small. Not happy. But real. I put my arm around him. Happy New Year, son. He leaned into me. Shoulders shaking. Laughing or crying. I couldn't tell. Happy New Year, Mom. The fire crackled. The snow fell. And in that moment, standing in the ashes of everything my father had fought for, I felt something I had not felt in decades. Peace. Not because the fight was over. Because I had finally let it go. Michael pulled the letter out of the box. Read it again. His eyes moved across the page, and I watched his face change. The anger faded. The confusion softened. Something new took its place. Grandpa was a good man, he said. The best, I said. He just didn't know how to win. Neither did you. I looked at him. I know how to win. That's not the same as knowing how to live. Michael nodded. He folded the letter carefully, put it back in the box, closed the lid. The evidence he started is gone, I said. The house is gone. The box survived, but the house, the actual property, is ash. There's nothing left to fight for. There's always something to fight for, Michael said, like what. He looked at me. In his eyes, I saw my father. I saw myself. I saw the boy who had screamed at me just hours ago, realizing that the person he hated most was the person who had given him everything. Like us, he said. Like our family. The firefighters were packing up. The flames had died to embers. Steam rose from the wreckage. The old house was gone. I put my hand on Michael's shoulder. Let's go home. He looked at me. Your house, our house, I said. It's just a building, but it can be home, if we fill it with the right things. Michael didn't argue. We walked back to the car. The snow was still falling. The streetlights cast soft yellow pools on the ground. I unlocked the doors. We got in. I started the engine. Mother, Michael said. Yes, I'm sorry. I pulled out onto the road. The headlights cut through the darkness. The fire was just a glow in my rearview mirror. Don't be sorry, I said. Just do better. He was quiet for a moment. I will, he said. I promise. I didn't say anything, but I reached over and squeezed his hand. He squeezed back. The drive home was silent. But it wasn't the kind of silence that eats you alive. It was the kind of silence that says, we're still here. We're still together. And that's enough. When we pulled into my driveway, I saw the lights on in the house. My cleaning woman must have left them on. The house looked warm from the outside. Bright. Welcoming. I parked. We got out. Stay the night, I said. It's late. The snow is getting worse. Sarah can pick you up in the morning. Michael hesitated. Then he nodded that I made coffee. We sat in the kitchen. The clock on the wall read 2:15 a.m. You know what I said tonight, Michael said. About your money. About love. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. I looked at him. Then tell me what you actually meant. He took a breath. I meant that I don't know how to accept your help without feeling like I'm failing. Like I should be able to do it myself. Like I'm still a child. I didn't interrupt. I'm 34 years old, he said. I have a wife, a house, a job. And I still need my mother to bail me out. That's not love. I don't know what that is. That's family, I said. That's what family does. Sarah doesn't see it that way. Sarah doesn't have to. She's not your mother. She's your wife. Her job is different from my job. Michael looked at me. What's your job? To love you, I said. Even when you scream at me. Even when you don't understand me. Even when you think my money is poison. He didn't have an answer to that. We drank our coffee in silence. The snow kept falling. The house was warm. And for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't alone. I stood up from the table. Walked to the front window. The snow had covered everything. White and clean and nude. Everything starts over, I said. That's what New Year's means. Not just a new day. A new chance. Michael came up behind me. He stood next to me at the window. Do you really think we can start over? He asked. Not think, I said. No. Why, I turned to face him. Because starting over doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means deciding that what happened doesn't get to decide what happens next. He looked at the snow. At the clean white blanket covering the yard. I want to fix it, he said. All of it. My marriage. My relationship with you. He paused. My understanding of who I am. That's a big list. I know. Then you'll need more than coffee. I walked to the cabinet. Pulled out the bottle of Lafroig. Scotch will help. He laughed. Real laugh. The first one I had heard from him in months. Yeah, he said. Scotch will help. I poured 2 glasses. We sat by the fire. The logs crackled. The clock on the mantel ticked. I don't know how to fix everything, Michael said. But I know I have to start somewhere. Start with the truth, I said. All of it. With Sarah. With yourself. With the people who matter. The truth, he repeated. Like Grandpa's letter, exactly like that. The truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes it just tells you where the door is. You have to choose to walk through it. Michael sipped his scotch. I watched his face. The tension in his jaw. The tightness around his eyes. Slowly, it began to ease. I don't want to lose you, he said. You won't lose me, I said. I'm not going anywhere. You never have. I nodded. I never will. We watched the fire. The clock ticked. The snow covered the world outside. And for the first time in 20 years, I didn't think about the house on Elm Street. I didn't think about the deed. I didn't think about the judge or the bribe or the fight my father never won. I thought about the man sitting next to me. My son. My family. And I thought about the only thing that really matters. Loved, not bought. Not sold. Given. Michael finished his scotch. He stood up. I need to call Sarah, he said. Now. I need to tell her the truth. All of it. I nodded. That's the right choice. He walked to the kitchen. I heard him dial. I heard his voice, low, steady, honest. I didn't listen. Some conversations are private. But I heard the tone. Apologetic. Firm. Honest. 20 minutes later, he came back. She's coming in the morning, he said. She said we need to talk. You do. I'm scared. Good. Fear means you care. Fear means you're not giving up. Michael sat back down. He looked at me. How do you always know what to say? I smiled. I don't. But I've been alive long enough to know what not to say. We stayed by the fire until the sun started to light the sky. The snow had stopped. The world outside was white and quiet. I walked to the window and looked out at the new year, and I knew that whatever came next, we would face it. Not with money. Not with secrets. With each other. That was all we ever needed. In the light of the first morning of the year, my son stood up, walked over to me, and put his arms around me. I love you, Mom, he said. I know. I said, not for the money. I know. He pulled back, looked at me. for everything else. And I believed him. The fire crackled behind us. Michael held the metal box against his chest like a shield. The letter was still open in his hand, the paper trembling in the cold wind. "We need to get out of here," a firefighter shouted. This whole structure could go any second. Michael didn't move. He just stared at the letter, reading it again and again. "Michael." I grabbed his arm. "We have to go. Now." He finally looked up. His eyes were glassy, like he had just woken from a dream. He knew. Grandpa knew all along. He could have stopped it. He couldn't. I pulled him toward the car. "Trust me. I've had 20 years to think about this." He couldn't stop it. The system wasn't built for people like him. People like him, poor people, working people, people who don't have the right last names or the right connections. He could have all the evidence in the world, but without money, without power, that evidence was just paper. Michael let me push him into the passenger seat. I slammed the door and got behind the wheel. The engine roared to life. I threw the car in reverse and backed down the narrow lane. The fire was a wall of orange in my rearview mirror. I drove until we hit the main road. Then I pulled over and killed the engine. The snow had stopped falling. Everything was still. Quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're the only person left on Earth. Michael opened the box again. He pulled out the photographs first. Black and white. Grainy. My father standing in front of the house with a hammer in one hand and my mother in the other. Both of them young. Both of them smiling like they had just won the lottery. "He built this house with his own hands," I said. "Every nail. Every board. He worked 3 jobs to save up for the lumber. Your grandmother cooked meals for the construction crew because they worked for free. Friends. Neighbors. People who believed in him." Michael turned the photograph over. There was writing on the back. My father's handwriting, small and precise. August 1958. The day we moved in. "I will die in this house." He didn't die in this house, Michael said. "No. He died in a nursing home. A state-funded nursing home. Because he couldn't afford the medical bills after the cancer took everything." Michael was quiet. He pulled out the legal documents. Yellowed paper, cracked at the folds. A judge's signature at the bottom, smudged, but readable. "This is the deed," I said. "The real one. The one that proves the developer never had legal claim to the land. He forged the transfer documents after the judge ruled against your grandfather." The judge accepted the forgery. The judge was paid to accept the forgery. $5,000. That's what it cost to steal a man's house in 1968. $5,000 and a handshake. Michael's jaw tightened. His knuckles were white where he gripped the papers. $5,000. Grandpa fought for 3 years, and someone walked away with everything for $5,000. "Things haven't changed much," I said. "They just hide the money better now." He set the documents aside and picked up the letter again. He read it aloud this time, his voice cracking on certain words. I listened to my father's words come out of my son's mouth. The deed to the house is a forgery. The judge's signature was a bribe. But I have evidence. And I have named the men who did this to us. Use it. Or don't. The choice is yours. Michael looked at me. You had a choice. All these years. You could have destroyed them. The developer. The judge. All of them. Yes. Why didn't you? I leaned my head against the headrest. The leather was cold against my skin. I stared through the windshield at the empty road ahead because I was afraid. I said, afraid of what? Afraid that if I started the fight, I would lose. That I would become like my father, obsessed with a battle I couldn't win. That I would spend the rest of my life chasing justice instead of living my life. Michael stared at me. You were afraid of losing. You're the strongest person I know. I laughed. A short, bitter laugh that tasted like smoke. Strong. I spent 20 years protecting a secret. 20 years lying to my own son about why I still owned a house I never visited. That's not strength, Michael. That's shame. He didn't speak. He just looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Not anger. Not disappointment. Something else. The last time I saw your grandfather alive, I said. He was lying in a hospital bed. The cancer had spread to his bones. He couldn't eat. He couldn't speak. But he reached out and grabbed my hand, and he said one thing to me. The only thing he could still say with his voice gone. What did he say? He said, "Don't make the same mistakes I did. Don't let the fight take everything from you. Let it go." Michael put the letter back in the box. Slowly, carefully. He closed the lid and set the box on his lap. "That's why you never did anything," he said. "You were honoring his wish." "I was honoring his fear," I said. "And in doing that, I made myself small. I made myself quiet. I pretended the house didn't exist instead of facing what it meant." Outside, a plow truck rumbled past. Salt dust sprayed against the windshield. The sound was loud enough to fill the silence between us. "You should have told me," Michael said. "When I was younger. When I could have helped. Helped you were a child. You were trying to figure out how to be a man, and I was trying to protect you from a fight that wasn't yours. It was always mine. That house is my history. My blood. My grandfather built it. That's not just your secret, Mom. That's ours." I nodded slowly. "You're right. It was never just mine. I should have told you. I should have trusted you. I should have let you be part of it." Michael looked at me. "Why didn't you?" It was the second time he had asked that question. I knew he deserved an answer. I knew he had earned one, because I didn't want you to see me as weak, I said. "When you were a child, I was the one who fixed everything. Broken toys, bruised knees, bad grades. I could fix all of it. But I couldn't fix this. I couldn't fix what happened to my father, and I couldn't fix the man who took his house. I knew that if I told you, you'd see that I wasn't as strong as you thought. And I couldn't bear that." Michael was silent for a long moment. Then he reached over and put his hand on my shoulder. "I'm not a child anymore," he said. "You don't have to protect me. Not from the truth. Not from anything." I looked at him. His face was serious. Steady. For the first time, I saw him as a man. Not my little boy. Not the teenager who crashed the car. "A man that I know," I said, "and I want to know everything," he said. "Every detail. Every piece of the story. I want to understand what happened. All of it." I glanced at the box on his lap. "The documents are there. The photographs. The letter. What else do you need to know?" He thought about it. "I need to know about the man. The developer. What happened to him?" I closed my eyes. The name rose up from the past like a shadow. "Clifford Worthington," I said. "He was a wealthy man. Boston money. Old money. He owned half the land in this county by the time I was your age. He wanted to build condominiums on the river, one of those planned communities for retirees. But your grandfather's property sat right in the middle of the land he needed. The only parcel he couldn't buy. What did he do? He tried to buy it. Repeatedly. Your grandfather refused every offer. He said he'd rather burn the house down himself than sell to a man who was trying to tear apart the neighborhood." Michael leaned forward. "So Worthington went to the judge. Not just any judge. Judge Henry Abbott. A man who had a gambling problem and a taste for expensive whiskey. Worthington paid him $5,000 to rule against your grandfather in the property dispute. The evidence was clear. Your grandfather had every right to that land. But Abbott ruled that the developer had legal claim based on a deed that had been forged." "Was Worthington ever caught?" I shook my head. "He died in 1989. Heart attack. He took the secret with him to the grave. Your grandfather outlived him by 4 years. He knew Worthington was dead, but he never knew justice. Not really. He died believing that the system had failed him and that no amount of evidence would ever matter." Michael's hand clenched into a fist on his knee. "That's disgusting. That man stole everything from Grandpa. He stole his house, his health, his peace of mind. And he never paid for any of it." "No," I said. "He didn't. And the judge, Abbott, died in a car accident in 1975. Drunk driving. He hit a tree on the interstate. His family buried him in the same cemetery where your grandfather is buried. I walk past his grave every time I visit." Michael stared at me. I don't know what that is. That's not justice. That's just death. Sometimes death is the only justice you get," I said. We sat in silence. The plow truck had passed. The road was quiet again. I started the engine and turned on the heat. The air began to warm. "So what do we do now?" Michael asked. "The house is gone. The evidence survived. But what good is it now? There's nothing left to fight for." I looked at the box, at the letter, at the photographs. "The house is gone." I agreed. But the story isn't. The truth isn't. And the men who did this, they're dead. But their families aren't. Their legacies aren't. Michael looked confused. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that maybe justice doesn't look like a court case. Maybe it doesn't look like a check. Maybe justice looks like a truth that finally gets spoken out loud. Maybe it looks like a son who knows what his grandfather went through. A son who will raise his own children differently because he knows the story." "What do I tell my kids? How do I explain this?" "You tell them the truth. You tell them that their great-grandfather was a good man who got cheated by rich people who thought they could buy anything. And you tell them that their grandmother kept the secret because she was scared, but she stopped being scared. Today, she stopped." Michael stared at me. "You stopped being scared. I stopped being scared," I said. "When you screamed at me about money and love, I realized something. I realized I had been hiding from the truth for so long that I had forgotten what it meant to face something head-on." He nodded slowly. "I realized something too." "What?" "I realized that I've been running from you. Not from your money. Not from your expectations. From you. From this relationship. From the weight of everything you've done for me." I watched his face. The way his eyes dropped to his hands. The way his shoulders rounded. "You're not running anymore." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm sitting here in the car, holding a box full of secrets, and I'm not running." "So, what are you going to do?" Michael looked at me. For the first time that night, he smiled. A real smile. "I'm going to help you figure out what to do with the truth. All of it. The house. The evidence. The story. We're going to find a way to make this right." "There's no right to make," I said. "The house is gone. The legal battle is over. There's nothing to fix." "Not for the house," he said. "For us. For our family. For the next generation. We're going to make sure they know who they come from. That's how we win. Not in a courtroom. In a living room. Over a Christmas dinner. Over a Thanksgiving table." I looked at him. For a moment, I saw his grandfather. The same stubborn set of the jaw. The same fire in the eyes. "That's a good plan," I said. "It's the only plan that matters." I pulled the car back onto the road. We drove in silence. The snow had stopped. The sky was beginning to lighten. A pale gray dawn breaking over the trees. We pulled into my driveway at 4:30 in the morning. The house was still lit. The windows glowed warm against the dark sky as we walked inside. I kicked off my shoes. Michael collapsed onto the couch. I went to the kitchen and started boiling water for tea. Not because I needed tea. Because I needed something to do with my hands. Michael came to the kitchen doorway. "I keep thinking about Grandpa's face," he said. "His face, in the photograph. He's smiling. He looks happy. He built that house with his own hands, and he was happy. And then somebody took it from him." "Somebody took the house," I said. "They couldn't take the happiness. That was still his. That was always his." Michael nodded. He came into the kitchen and sat at the table. I poured the tea and sat across from him. "The things you taught me," he said. "The way you raised me. None of that was about money, was it?" I looked at him. "What do you think? I used to think it was all about money. I thought you gave me things because that was easier than giving me your time. I thought you were buying me off. And now I think you were trying to give me what you never had. Stability. Security. Freedom from the thing that scared you the most." "What scared me the most?" Michael looked at me with those steady eyes. "Being poor. Being powerless. Being invisible." I set down my tea. My hands were shaking. "You're right," I said. I was terrified. Every day of my life, I was terrified of ending up back in that house with no heat and no food and no future. I was so scared of being poor that I forgot how to be present. I worked so hard to give you things that I forgot to give you myself. Michael's hand reached across the table. He covered my hand with his. "Mom," he said, "you gave me yourself. You just didn't know it. Every choice you made was rooted in love. Even the hard ones. Even the ones that made me angry." I made you so angry tonight. I said, you made me angry. But you also made me think. You always made me think. That's what I hated most about you, that you were always right. I laughed. I'm not always right. You were right about one thing. What's that? When I screamed at you about love and money, you smiled. You didn't cry. You didn't fight. You smiled. And you walked out. That was the most powerful thing I've ever seen anyone do. I squeezed his hand. I learned that from your grandfather. He taught me that the only way to win a fight is to refuse to participate in it. Michael sat back. He picked up his tea and took a sip. So what happens now, he asked. With the box. With the truth. With everything. I thought about it for a long moment. I thought about my father. I thought about the judge. I thought about the house, reduced to ash and memory. We take the evidence to a lawyer, I said. Not to file a lawsuit. Not to start a legal battle. But to create a record. A public record. Something that will survive even after we're gone. What kind of record? A family record. A statement. We'll write down the whole story, from beginning to end. We'll include the photographs, the letter, the witnesses, anyone who's still alive who can confirm what happened. Michael nodded. And then what? And then we file it. With the county. With the historical society. With anyone who will keep it safe. So that 20 years from now, 50 years from now, when someone looks up the history of that house, they'll see the truth. And what about Worthington's family? I took a breath. They're part of the story too. They need to know. Not because they're guilty. Not because they're responsible. But because someone needs to speak the truth, and it might as well be us. Michael was quiet for a long time. Then he said, You're going to tell them? Yes. Will they even listen? Probably not, I said. But that's not the point. The point is to say it. To put it into words. To make it real. Michael looked at the box. He looked at the letter. He looked at me. Let's do it, he said. Let's do what? Let's write the record. Tonight. I'll help you. I stared at him. Michael, it's 5 a.m. You haven't slept. You haven't eaten. You haven't called Sarah. Sarah can wait. Sleep can wait. Food can wait. This can't. This has been waiting for 20 years. It's not going to wait another day. I looked at my son, the boy who had screamed at me hours ago, the man who now sat across from me, determined to carry the weight of his grandfather's legacy. Okay, I said. We'll do it together. We got up from the table. Michael grabbed the box. We walked into my study, a room I had never really used. Bookshelves lined the walls. A desk sat in the corner, empty except for a lamp and a photo of my husband. Michael set the box on the desk. He opened it and spread the documents across the surface. The photographs, the legal papers, the letter. He sat down in the chair. I sat next to him. What do we do first? He asked. We start at the beginning, I said. We tell the story of a man named Arthur Lawson. He was born in 1922 in a small town in Iowa. He moved to Minnesota when he was 21 with nothing but a hammer and a dream. He built a house. He raised a family. And he fought for everything he had. Michael picked up a pen. He opened a notebook. Arthur Lawson, he wrote. 1922-1993. I looked at the name. My father's name. Written in my son's handwriting. I should have done this a long time ago. I said, You're doing it now, Michael said. That's what matters. I took the letter. I read it aloud again. My father's words filled the study. Asterisk, if you are reading this, my daughter, then I am proud of you. You have survived. You have thrived. And now you have found the one thing I could never give you in life. The truth. Asterisk, I stopped reading. My voice caught in my throat. Mom, Michael looked at me. Are you okay? I nodded. But I wasn't okay. Not really. I was feeling everything I had suppressed for 20 years. The anger, the sorrow, the grief. All of it. I miss him, I said. I never stopped missing him. Michael put his hand on my shoulder. I miss him too. Even though I never really knew him. I miss the man I could have known. The man you always told me about. He was a good man, I said. The best. And we're going to make sure everyone knows it. I took a deep breath. I picked up the pen. We're going to write it all down, I said. Every detail. Every name, every date. We're going to tell the truth. Michael nodded. Let's do it. We started writing. The hours passed. The sun rose outside the window. The snow began to melt. And together, we wrote the story of my father's life. A story that had been buried for too long. A story that finally had a voice. At 7 a.m., the doorbell rang. Michael looked up from the notebook. Sarah, he said. She's here. I watched his face. The way his expression changed. The way he set down the pen and stood up straight. Are you ready? I asked. I'm ready. He walked to the front door. I heard it open. I heard Sarah's voice, hesitant and tired. Michael, she said. What happened? I've been calling you all night. I know, he said. I'm sorry, but I need you to come inside. I need to tell you something. There was a pause. Then Sarah walked into the study, following Michael's lead. She looked exhausted. Her mascara was smudged. Her hair was in disarray as she looked at the documents spread across the desk. At the photographs. At the letter. Emmead, what's all this? She asked. Michael took her hand. Sit down. Please. She sat.
Michael sat beside her.
I stayed where I was. It's a long story, Michael said. But you need to hear it. All of it. Sarah looked at me. For a moment, I saw something shift in her expression. Not warmth, exactly. But not hostility either. An opening to, okay, she said.
I'm listening.
Sarah listened to the entire story without interrupting once. I watched her face as Michael spoke. The tightness around her mouth. The way her fingers twisted together in her lap. She was a woman who had built walls around herself, and I could see those walls cracking one brick at a time. When Michael finished, Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at me.
Why didn't you tell him? She asked.
All those years. Why didn't you just tell him the truth? I met her eyes. Because I was ashamed. Of what? Of being a victim. Of not fighting back. Of letting my father's legacy rot in a box while I pretended everything was fine. Sarah nodded slowly. She looked at Michael. You screamed at her tonight. In front of everyone. You told her that her money couldn't buy your love. Michael's face flushed. I know. It was wrong. Yes, it was wrong, Sarah said. But I understand why you said it. Michael stared at her. You do. Because I've been saying the same thing to myself for years. Every time she gave us money, I felt smaller. Every time she paid for something, I felt like a failure. I told myself I hated her for it, but I was really just hating myself. I felt my chest tighten. Sarah, let me finish, she said. You've been generous to us. More than generous. And I've been ungrateful. I've been angry at you for being successful while I was struggling. But that was never your fault. That was my own insecurity. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was firm. I don't want to be your enemy, she said. I don't want to be the woman who takes your money and then complains about it. I want to be your family. I looked at her. This woman I had never liked. This woman I had dismissed as tinsel and opinions. She was offering me something I had not expected. Family. I repeated, yes. Real family. The kind that fights and screams and then sits down together and works it out. Michael put his hand on top of both of ours. That's what I want too, he said. I don't want to keep running from you. I don't want to keep pretending you're the enemy. You're my mother. You've always been my mother. I looked at the three of us, hands together on the table. A chain of connection that had been broken for years, suddenly welded back together. I did not cry. I had not cried in front of anyone since my father died. But my eyes burned. Thank you, I said. Both of them. Thank you for being here. Michael looked at the documents on the desk. We still have work to do. The record. The story. We need to finish it. I need to call my mother, Sarah said suddenly. Michael looked at her. Your mother? Why? Because she was here. She was at the party tonight. She saw everything. She heard Michael scream at you, and she walked out in the middle of the fight. I frowned. She left, Sarah said. She said she didn't want to be in the middle of a family war. But I think she was just embarrassed. Embarrassed for you. Embarrassed for Michael. Embarrassed that she had to watch it. I thought about Margaret, my sister. She had always been the peacemaker, the one who smoothed things over. The one who pretended everything was fine. I should call her. I said. No, Sarah said. Let me.
She's my aunt.
She'll listen to me. Michael looked surprised. Since when do you and Aunt Margaret talk? Since you and I started fighting, Sarah said. She was the only one who would listen. When you were throwing things and screaming about your mother's money, she was the one who told me to breathe. She said, Sarah, this isn't about the money. This is about love. I blinked. Margaret had said that my sister, who I had always thought was too meek to have an opinion, she's been trying to help us, Sarah continued. She's been trying to get me to understand your mother. To understand you. And I haven't been listening. But I'm listening now. She stood up and walked into the kitchen. I heard her dial. I heard her voice, soft and earnest. Hi, Aunt Margaret. It's Sarah. I know it's early. I need you to come over. There's something we need to talk about. All of us. Michael looked at me. I can't believe she did that. Neither can I said. Your sister is a lot smarter than I gave her credit for.
She always was, I said.
I just didn't see it. 20 minutes later, Margaret walked through the front door. She was wearing a coat over her nightgown. Her hair was a mess. She had driven through the snow in her slippers. What's going on? She asked. Sarah called and said it was urgent. Michael gestured to the study. Come sit down, Aunt Margaret. We have a story to tell you. Margaret looked at the documents on the desk. At the photographs. At the letter. She sat down slowly. What is all this? She asked. It's Grandpa's story, Michael said. The real one. Margaret looked at me. Her eyes were wide. You told him after all these years. He deserved to know, I said. He deserved to know who his grandfather really was. Margaret picked up the photograph of my father. She stared at it for a long time. I remember him, she said. I remember the way he laughed. The way he would sneak us candy when Mother wasn't looking.
He was always so sad, though.
Even when he was laughing, there was always something underneath. Now you know what it was, I said. Margaret set the photograph down. She looked at the letter. She read it silently. Oh, Daddy, she whispered. You poor man. I felt my throat tighten. He was not poor, I said.
He was rich.
He just didn't have money. Margaret looked at me. You've been carrying this alone for 20 years. I've been carrying it alone for 40 years, I said. I just didn't tell anyone. She reached over and took my hand. I'm sorry I didn't see it. I'm sorry I didn't ask. You didn't know what to ask, I said. None of us did. Sarah came back from the kitchen. She sat down next to Michael. So what happens now? She asked. We finish the record, Michael said. We write everything down. Every detail. Every piece of evidence. And then we file it somewhere safe. Where? Sarah asked. I thought about it. The County Historical Society, I said. They keep records of old properties. They have archives. If we give them the story, it will be there forever. Anyone who looks up that house will find the truth. Margaret nodded. What about Worthington's family? I took a breath. I'm going to call them. Everyone stared at me. Call them, Michael said. Just call them. They're the ones who stole from Grandpa. They're the ones who destroyed our family. They're the ones who inherited the legacy, I said. And they deserve to know what their ancestor did. They deserve to know the truth. And if they don't care, Sarah asked, then they don't care, I said. But at least I will have told them. At least I will have done what my father couldn't. I stood up. I walked to the phone on the wall. I dialed directory assistance. Clifford Worthington's family, I said to the operator. I need a number. The operator gave me a number. I dialed it. My hand was steady. My voice was steady. A woman answered. Hello, I introduced myself. I told her who I was. I told her why I was calling. There was a long silence on the other end. I knew about the house, the woman said finally. I found the documents after my father died. I knew he had done something wrong, but I didn't know what. I didn't know how to fix it. Neither did I said. For 20 years, neither did I. My father was a good man, she said. At least he was good to me. But I know he wasn't good to everyone. I know he made mistakes. More than mistakes, I said. He stole a house from my father.
I know, she said. I'm sorry.
I've wanted to apologize for years. I just didn't know how. Apologize, I said. That's a good start.
Can we meet? She asked.
I'd like to talk. In person. I'd like to see the house. The house is gone, I said. It burned down tonight. There was a pause. Burned down an accident, I said. But maybe it was fate. Maybe it was the universe telling us to let go of the past. The woman on the phone was quiet. Then she said, "The past isn't going to let go of us. Not until we face it." I looked at my family. At Michael. At Sarah. At Margaret. They were all watching me. "You're right," I said. "And I'm ready to face it." "Are you?" "Yes," she said. "I am." I hung up. I walked back to the table. "That was Clifford Worthington's daughter?" I said. Michael stared at me. "What did she say?" "She said she wanted to apologize. She knew about what her father did. She just didn't know how to make it right." "And what did you tell her?" "I told her that we'd talk. In person. Tomorrow." Sarah shook her head. "You're going to meet with the daughter of the man who stole your father's house." "Yes," I said. "Because that's what family does. We face the past. We tell the truth. And we try to make it right." Margaret looked at me. "You've changed," she said. "No," I said. "I haven't changed. I'm just finally being honest about who I've always been." We went back to work on the record. Michael wrote. Sarah organized the documents. Margaret made coffee. I sat and told them everything I remembered. My father's voice echoed in my memory. Not the words he said. The way he said them. The way he always tried to be brave even when he was terrified. "Let it go," he had said, but I realized now that letting go didn't mean forgetting. It meant accepting. It meant telling the truth and then releasing the weight of it. I was ready. At noon, the snow started again. We were still at the kitchen table, working on the record. The documents were spread across the surface. The letter was propped against the sugar bowl. "I want to read it again," Sarah said. "The letter." Michael handed it to her. She read it in silence. When she finished, she looked up. "Your grandfather was a poet," she said. "He was a farmer," I said. "But he had a poet's heart." Sarah folded the letter carefully. She handed it back to Michael. "Thank you," she said, "for letting me be part of this." I looked at her. "You are part of this. You're part of this family, whether you like it or not." She laughed. "I'm starting to like it." Michael wrapped his arm around her shoulder. "I'm starting to like it too." We finished the record at 2 p.m. Michael wrote the final sentence that Arthur Lawson was a good man who was wronged by the system. But he was never defeated, because he had a family who loved him. And that love survived everything. I read the sentence. I read it again. "He would have liked that." I said. "He would have liked you," Michael said. "He would have been proud of you." I felt my eyes burn. I blinked the tears away. "I love you," I said. To Michael.
To Sarah.
To Margaret. All of them. All of you. Michael hugged me. Sarah hugged me. Margaret hugged me till we stood in the kitchen, holding each other as the snow fell outside, and I realized that this was what my father had fought for. Not the house. Not the land.
This.
Family. Connection. Loved. Everything else was just stuffed. The house had burned, but the love was still standing. It had always been standing. I just hadn't been paying attention. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. I lay in bed for a long moment, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet. Too quiet. For a second, I thought the night before had been a dream. The fire. The letter. The truth. Then I heard Michael's voice in the kitchen. And Sarah's. And Margaret's. They were still here. All of them. In my house. Making coffee and talking in low voices. I got out of bed and walked to the kitchen door. I stood there for a moment, watching them. Michael was at the stove, flipping pancakes. Sarah was setting the table. Margaret was pouring orange juice. They looked like a family, like my family. "Good morning," I said. They all turned. Michael smiled. "Good morning, Mom. We made breakfast." I walked to the table and sat down. Michael put a plate of pancakes in front of me.
"Eat," he said.
"You need your strength." "Strength for what?" He glanced at Sarah. She glanced at Margaret. They all looked at me. "We have a meeting today," Michael said. "With the Worthington woman." I had forgotten. In the warmth of the kitchen, with my family around me, I had forgotten about the phone call. "It's just coffee," I said. "Just a conversation." "It's more than that," Margaret said. It's the first time anyone from our family has ever faced them directly. That takes courage. I looked at the pancakes. I wasn't hungry, but I picked up my fork and took a bite. We should go together, Sarah said. All of us. I shook my head. She asked to meet me. Just me. Then we'll wait in the car, Michael said. We'll be right there if you need us. I wanted to argue, but I looked at their faces and saw the determination there. They weren't going to let me face this alone, okay? I said. But you stay in the car. No matter what happens. Michael nodded. We promise. We finished breakfast. I showered and dressed. I chose a simple black dress and a pair of flat boots. No heels.
No Hermes. Just me.
The drive to the coffee shop took 20 minutes. It was a small place on the edge of town. The kind of place where old men read newspapers and waitresses knew your name. That I parked. Michael and Sarah and Margaret stayed in the car. I walked inside alone. That the woman was already there. She was sitting in a booth by the window. She had gray hair and kind eyes. Her hands were wrapped around a cup of tea. I walked over to her. You must be Linda Worthington. She looked up. And you must be Mrs. Lawson. I sat down across from her. We looked at each other for a moment. I'm not a Lawson anymore, I said. That was my maiden name. I married a man named Carter. Mrs. Carter, then, Linda said. Thank you for meeting me. Thank you for coming. She set down her tea. She had a nervous way about her. Her fingers kept twitching. Her eyes kept darting to the window. I didn't know what to say to you on the phone, she said. I've been thinking about it all night. I should have called years ago. I should have called years ago too, I said. But I was afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid that you wouldn't care. Afraid that the truth didn't matter to anyone but me. Linda looked at me. Her eyes were soft.
Sut.
The truth matters, she said. It matters more than anything. She reached into her purse and pulled out a brown envelope. She slid it across the table. I found these in my father's safe after he died, she said. I didn't know what to do with them.
I didn't want to believe what they said.
I opened the envelope. Inside were letters. Old letters. Handwritten. I recognized the handwriting. It was my father's. He wrote to your father, I asked. Every year, Linda said. Every year on the anniversary of the court case. He wrote him a letter asking for forgiveness. My father never wrote back. He never even showed the letters to anyone. But he kept them. I pulled out the first letter. Dated 1969. A year after the trial. Dear Mr. Worthington. I am writing to you today because I cannot stop thinking about what happened. I know the court ruled in your favor. I know the law says the house is yours. But I need you to know that I built that house with my own hands. I raised my children there. My wife died in that house. It is not just a building to me. It is my life. I ask nothing from you. I just want you to know the truth. I read the letter. And another. And another. Every year, the same plea. Every year, the same silence. He never stopped trying, I said. He never gave up. Even when it was hopeless. Linda nodded. My father was a stubborn man. He could have answered. He could have made things right. But he couldn't admit he was wrong.
He was a rich man, I said.
Rich people don't admit they're wrong. They just pay people to make problems go away. I'm not like him, Linda said. I don't want to be like him. I looked at her. I saw the shame in her eyes. The genuine shame. What do you want? I asked. I want to apologize, she said. I want to apologize for what my father did. I know it doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't bring back the house.
But I need to say it.
For myself. For my children. For the truth. I looked down at the letters. My father's words. His hope. His grief. Your father didn't steal just a house, I said. He stole a legacy. He stole my father's peace of mind. He stole years of my father's life. Years that could have been spent with his family. Years that were instead spent fighting a battle he couldn't win. Linda's eyes filled with tears. I know. And I'm so sorry. I took a breath. I let it out slowly. My father was a good man, I said. He never hated anyone. Not even your father. He just wanted to be seen. He wanted someone to acknowledge what had been taken from him. I see it, Linda said. I see it all. And I will tell everyone I know. I will tell my children. I will tell their children. The truth will be passed down. I looked at her. She was not pretending. She was not trying to make excuses. She was just a woman who had inherited a terrible secret and was trying to do the right thing. Thank you, I said. You don't have to thank me, she said. I'm the one who should be thanking you.
For meeting me.
For giving me a chance to speak. I stood up. Linda stood up. She reached out her hand. I took it. Can I ask you something? She said. Yes. What are you going to do now with the house with the land? I thought about it. The house was gone. The land was still there. Empty. Waiting. I'm going to build something new, I said. Something that honors my father's memory. Something that will be a place of healing, not a place of bitterness. What will you build? A garden, I said. A public garden. Open to everyone. A place where people can come and sit and think. A place where they can remember that even when terrible things happen, beauty can grow from the ashes. Linda smiled. That's beautiful. Your father took a house, I said. But he couldn't take the land. And he couldn't take the love that was built into every stone. That's still there. That will always be there. I walked out of the coffee shop. The sun was shining. The snow was melting. Michael, Sarah, and Margaret got out of the car. How did it go? Michael asked. Better than I expected. I said it. I told them about the letters. About the apology. About the garden. Michael shook his head. You're going to build a garden on that land, yes. After everything that happened, because of everything that happened, I said, the only way to defeat bitterness is to create something beautiful in its place.
Sarah looked at me.
You really are stronger than I ever gave you credit for. I smiled. I learned that from my father. He taught me that the strongest people aren't the ones who fight the hardest. They're the ones who love the hardest, even when it seems impossible. We drove home. I felt lighter than I had in decades. The weight that had been pressing on my shoulders for 40 years was finally gone, not because I had won. Not because I had gotten justice, but because I had spoken the truth, and the truth had set me free. The garden took 3 years. I spent the first year clearing the land. The ashes had long since been swept away, but the foundation of the old house still stood. I hired a crew to remove it. I watched them dig up the last remnants of my father's home and haul them away on flatbed trucks. Michael helped. He came every weekend. Sarah came with him. They brought their children, my grandchildren, and we made a game of it. The kids collected rocks and pieces of old brick. They didn't know what they were picking up. To them, it was just treasure. We're building something new, I told them. Something beautiful. The second year, I planted the first seeds. Roses, lavender, sunflowers. Things that grew tall and proud. Things that didn't need permission to bloom. I hired a landscape architect. A young woman named Elena, who had grown up in the same town my father had. She listened to my story and she understood. Every garden needs a story, she said. What's yours? I told her about my father. About the house. About the judge and the bribe and the box under the floorboards. She listened without interrupting. We'll plant a grove of oaks, she said. One for every year your father fought for his home. 3 oaks, I said. 3 oaks. And at the center, a bench. A place to sit and remember. I agreed. We built a path through the garden. A winding path that led to the bench at the center. I walked that path every day. The 3rd year the garden bloomed. I stood at the entrance on opening day. There were no ribbons to cut.
No speeches to make.
Just a gate and a sign. The Lawson Garden of Remembrance. Michael stood beside me. Sarah was on his other side. Their kids ran ahead, chasing butterflies. You did it, Michael said. We did it, I said. All of us. He looked at the garden. The oaks were still small. They would take decades to grow. But the flowers were already tall. The lavender was already fragrant. The sunflowers were already reaching for the sky. She would have loved this, Michael said. Your grandmother? No.
Sarah.
She's the one who pushed me to come here every weekend. She's the one who told me to stop making excuses and start making memories. I looked at Sarah. She was helping her daughter plant a small sunflower in the corner of the garden. She looked happy. Truly happy. She's a good woman. I said. She's the best woman, Michael said. I don't know what I did to deserve her.
You learned, I said.
You learned to let go of your anger. That's what changed everything. Michael nodded. You taught me that. I shook my head. Your grandfather taught me. I was just the messenger. Margaret arrived with Frank. They walked through the gate and looked around. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. It's beautiful, she said. He would have cried. He probably is crying, I said. Wherever he is. Linda Worthington showed up an hour later. I saw her hesitate at the gate. She looked nervous, and I walked over to her. You came. I wanted to see it, she said. I wanted to see what you built. I let her inside. We walked the path together. The flowers swayed in the breeze. The sun was warm on our faces. I should have done something, she said. Years ago. I should have fixed it. You couldn't fix it, I said. The past isn't fixable. It's just past. That's the hardest thing to accept, isn't it, she said. That some things can never be repaired. Yes, I said. But that doesn't mean you stop trying. It just means you try differently.
She stopped at the bench.
She sat down.
He sat beside her.
My father never apologized, she said. Not once. He went to his grave believing he had done nothing wrong. That's what I've been carrying. Not his guilt. His denial. That's heavier than guilt, I said. Much heavier. Guilt means you know you did something wrong. Denial means you never even let yourself see it. I looked at the garden, at the oaks, at the sunflowers, at my grandchildren running through the grass. We can't change what our parents did, I said. But we can change what we do with the inheritance they left us. Linda looked at me. What are you going to do with yours? I thought about it. I looked at Michael, at Sarah, at my grandchildren, at my sister and her husband, at the garden that had risen from the ashes of my father's house. I'm going to love my family, I said. Every day, without reservation, without condition. Linda nodded. That's a good inheritance. The best one there is. She stood up. She reached out her hand. I shook it. Thank you, she said. For what? For forgiving me. For forgiving my father. For showing me that the past doesn't have to define the future. I smiled. It doesn't. And I'm not forgiving you for you. I'm forgiving you for me. So I can let go of the weight I've been carrying. Linda left. I watched her walk through the gate and get into her car. She waved once before driving away and Michael came up behind me. She seems nice, he said. She's trying, I said. That's all any of us can do. It was late afternoon now. The sun was low in the sky. The garden was golden and warm. My grandchildren ran up to me. Grandma, Grandma, we found a frog. I laughed. A frog. By the pond. He's really big. I let them drag me to the pond. There was a frog sitting on a lily pad. Green and speckled and completely unimpressed by the children screaming at it. Can we keep him? One of them asked. Absolutely not, I said. He lives here. This is his home. But we want him. Then you'll have to visit him. Every day. He'll still be here. They looked at each other. They thought about it. They nodded. We'll visit him, they said, and I smiled. Good. That's what you do with things you love. You visit them. You take care of them. You keep coming back. Michael was watching me from the path. I walked back to him. You handled that well, he said. Years of practice. I said, what are you doing tomorrow? I thought about it. Going to the Historical Society. They want to display the record. The story. They asked if I'd do a talk. Are you going to? I think so. People need to know the truth. My father's truth. All the truths that get buried by money and power. Michael nodded. I'll come with you. You don't have to. I want to. This is our story now. Mine and yours. We tell it together. I looked at him. My son. The boy who had screamed at me on New Year's Eve. The man who had stood beside me through every step of this journey. Together, I said it. We walked back to the car. The sun was setting. The garden was quiet. The flowers were closing for the night. I took one last look at it. The oaks. The lavender. The bench. The path. My father would have loved it. He would have walked through it every day. He would have sat on the bench and watched the sun set. He never got to see it. But I know he knew. I know he could feel it. Some things don't need to be seen to be real. Some things just need to be believed. I got in the car. We drove home. The snow was melting. The spring was coming. And for the first time in my life, I was not afraid of what came next.